A small town. A farm unchanged for generations. And a legacy carried by one family through the years. But a looming disaster threatens to change everything. Logan, a farmer following in his father's footsteps. Battling harsh winters and scorching summers, could he have foreseen the greatest challenge of their lives? One night, rising flames and an ash-filled sky altered the destiny of the entire town. A missing girl on one side and a farm fighting to stand against the blaze on the other. This is a story of courage, sacrifice, and hope rising from the ashes. Can Logan and Harper rebuild a new future from memories turned to cinders? Don't miss this epic tale where life, love, and legacy are put to the ultimate test. Logan was a farmer living in a small rural town. His family had worked this land for generations, making farming not just a job but a way of life. From a young age, his father had taught him the ropes, instilling in him a love for this tough yet meaningful profession. Farming required true dedication and patience, but Logan was determined to carry on his family's legacy. That's why he chose to stay on the farm, ready to face any challenge that came his way. Each year they did their best to raise a healthy herd. The region's harsh winters and scorching summers made their work even harder, but they never gave up. While farming had once been a common occupation in town, over time, it had become less popular. Families like Logan's who held onto their farms were now few and far between. This made preserving the quality passed down through generations a serious responsibility for them. Despite winter drawing near, there was an unusual warmth in the air that morning. Farming always started with early risings, but from the first hours of the day, it was clear something was off. When Logan quickly got dressed and headed downstairs, he found his father, Michael, sitting in front of the television. The older man's face was set in a stern, serious expression as he watched the news. Michael, hardened by years of experience, was still a strong figure who carried the weight of the farm on his shoulders. Surprised by his father's uncharacteristic silence and tension, Logan asked, "What's going on?" Without taking his eyes off the screen, Michael muttered, "It's not good." Logan turned his attention to the television and was met with a terrifying sight. Wildfires had broken out in a nearby town. The weather reporter explained that the flames were spreading rapidly, defying all efforts to contain them, and that many lives, both human and animal, had already been lost. A chill ran down Logan's spine. Michael took a deep breath and in a grave tone said, "God help them." His eyes remained fixed on the devastating scene on the screen. After a heavy pause, he added solemnly, "And protect us." Michael was a tough father, but that toughness was part of who he was. Beneath it, his warm heart was well known to his family and close friends. That day, with his usual determination, he shot Logan a firm look and gave clear instructions. "Logan, feed the herd. Then check their water and draw extra from the creek. Fill the troughs 2-3 times more than usual. Make sure every cow has enough water. This heat will dry them out." Michael was old school, a remarkable farmer shaped by years of experience. Without hesitation, Logan set to work, knowing the gravity of the situation. The air was strange, tinged with an orange hue and thick with dust, a clear warning of the danger ahead. He drew water from the creek, fed the herd, and made sure each cow had plenty to drink. As soon as he finished, he started back toward the house, but the air had grown worse. When Logan reached the porch, he found his father hosing down the outside of their wooden house. Concerned, Logan asked, "Dad, has the wind changed direction?" Just a few hours ago, the fire wasn't expected to reach the town. The wind had been blowing the other way. Michael replied tersely, "Yes. The fire's heading this way. We need to do everything we can. Move fast." Michael pointed toward the tarps. "Draw more water from the creek. Soak the tarps and stack them in front of the barns. Wet everything down as much as possible." Logan obeyed his father's calm but urgent commands and threw himself into the work with all his strength. Meanwhile, Michael paused for a moment, looking at his farm and their home. Resting his hand on the wooden railing of the porch, he took a deep breath and murmured to himself, "Hold on. Just hold on." Logan gathered the herd into the one barn he thought was safest, making sure they had plenty of food and water. His muscles ached from the grueling work, but there was no time to rest. He hosed down the outside of the barn and wrapped the perimeter in wet blankets. When he finally returned to the house, he found his father, Michael, soaking the entire property with water. Seeing Logan approach, Michael set the hose down and spoke in a serious tone, "There's nothing more we can do here. I just got a call from the town officials. They've designated the school gym as an evacuation center. This is an emergency. Everyone will stay there until the fire threat is over. Pack your bag and call your mother." Logan paused for a moment at his father's words. His parents, Michael and Mary, had divorced a few years ago. Mary now ran a cafe in the center of town. Pulling out his phone, Logan called her. She answered quickly, her voice tense. "Are you ready, Mom?" Logan asked. "Yes," Mary replied without hesitation. "Meet me at the school." Then she hung up. Time was running out for everyone. Meanwhile, Michael packed a few essentials. He threw whatever supplies he could find into a bag and loaded the prepared items into the pickup truck. As Logan stepped out of the house, his eyes fell on an old photograph resting on the nightstand. It was a framed picture of his grandfather and father, standing together in front of the farm years ago. For a brief moment, Logan hesitated. Then he carefully picked up the frame and tucked it into his bag. Deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that they might lose the farm and the herd. As Logan and Michael drove the pickup toward the town center, they saw others hurriedly taking precautions and fleeing just like them. The sight of people scrambling, cars, tractors, and pedestrians moving in a chaotic rush, intensified the fear that gripped both of them. The urgency and panic were palpable, a stark reminder of how serious the wildfire was. When they finally arrived at the school, the gymnasium and its surroundings were packed with nearly the entire town. Children, elderly folks, families with their pets, everyone was there. Those outside were following officials' instructions, carefully arranging their belongings, while those inside tried to settle in. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of smoke, a chilling indication of how close the fire had gotten. Logan scanned the crowd, searching for his mother, Mary. Moments later, he saw her making her way toward them, her movements hurried but her posture resolute. He hugged her tightly, trying for just a moment to push aside the overwhelming worry. But Michael's stern yet anxious expression served as a constant reminder of the gravity of their situation. "Are you both okay?" "The farm?" Mary asked quickly. Michael gave a small nod in response. "We did what we could. Now we wait." Just then, an official began speaking over a loudspeaker, giving updates on the efforts of firefighters and volunteers battling the flames. The crowd fell silent, everyone holding their breath, bracing themselves for what the long and uncertain night might bring. When officials announced that the roads leading to the area where Logan and Michael's farm was located had been closed, Michael swallowed hard and remained silent. He knew it was a precaution, but the reality that the fire was approaching from that direction weighed heavily on him. Another team had been stationed further out, ready to respond. As people gradually settled into the gym, some still lingered outside, waiting for their loved ones. Eventually, the crowd outside began to thin. Logan, his mother Mary, and Michael made their way inside. Just as they did, a man in his 50s burst into the gym, frantically shouting, "Harper! Harper!" The man was relatively new to the town. He owned a large company and had been buying up farmland in the area. Focused on expanding his business in beef production, he had purchased land from farmers who were struggling, aging, or ready to leave farming behind. Michael despised this man. When he had tried to buy Michael's herd and land, Michael had firmly said no, prompting the man to respond with arrogance and disrespect. But now none of that smugness remained. He clutched his hat in his hands, took a deep breath, and slumped into a corner, quietly murmuring, "She's not here." When curious onlookers approached, he explained that he had planned to meet his daughter Harper here, but she hadn't arrived yet. A hush fell over the room. Logan knew Harper, a kind, sweet girl around his age. They'd only met a few times and had just started getting to know each other. Logan walked over to the man, his steps quiet but deliberate. The man, his voice resolute, said, "I need to go look for her. I can't wait any longer." Logan hesitated for a moment before saying softly, "I'll come with you." The man looked at Logan with gratitude. Just then, Michael placed a hand on Logan's shoulder. "No, Logan," he said, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. Logan met his father's gaze and said, "You'd expect this of me, Dad." Michael's eyes filled with emotion as he nodded. "Be careful," he said, his voice trembling. Mary broke down, opposing the idea of her son heading into danger. She wept, but Michael gently placed his arms around her shoulders, trying to comfort her. In a soothing voice he said, "He's just going to look." Mary, sobbing, glanced at Logan, unable to find the words to stop him. With the weight of his father's approval and the responsibility it carried, Logan set out with determination. 2 pickups hit the road just in case. The situation was dire, the town was under the grip of the wildfire. Visibility had dropped to nearly zero, with ash and smoke blanketing everything. Some areas were engulfed in flames, while others were shrouded in a gray haze of smoke. The road ahead was blocked and officials stopped the vehicles. The man quickly jumped out of his truck and rushed to the officers, shouting, My daughter's missing. I have to find her. Logan sat in his own pickup, listening to the conversation while his eyes were fixed on the distant flames. But waiting made every second feel like a loss. As the man tried to explain his situation to the officials, he suddenly started coughing. The ash and dust in the air were becoming unbearable. One of the officers handed him a mask, explaining something, but Logan had already reached his limit. Without a second thought, he slammed on the gas and broke through the barricades, driving forward. He knew the house he was looking for and kept his eyes locked on the road. When he finally reached the house, the fire hadn't yet reached it, but the surrounding land was ablaze, and the flames were advancing rapidly. Wasting no time, Logan rushed to check the house. "Harper! Harper!" he shouted, but the place seemed empty. Just as he was about to give up, he heard a faint cry in the distance. "Help!" The voice was coming from the barn, part of which was already engulfed in flames. Logan took a deep breath, covered his mouth and nose with a damp cloth, and soaked a blanket before charging into the barn. Inside it was filled with smoke and unbearable heat, but in the corner he spotted a barking dog and Harper, yelling desperately for help. Between them and the exit lay a massive wooden beam that had fallen and caught fire, blocking their way out. "Harper! You'll need to jump over the beam in seconds, this won't hold for long." The intensity and ferocity of the fire made every moment more perilous. Harper, scared but determined, shouted back, "Okay," though her voice was weak and shaky. Logan noticed that amidst the flames, Harper was wrapping something in a blanket and tying it tightly to her body. She struggled to pick up the dog in her arms, her face etched with desperate determination. Logan shouted, "I'm counting to 3, and threw the soaked blanket over the beam. The flames momentarily subsided, creating a narrow gap. Harper leapt through the gap, and together they sprinted out of the barn. The heat from the flames chased them as they ran. As soon as they made it outside, Harper stopped suddenly and said, "Wait." She gently set the dog down. The poor animal's fur was singed, its paws injured, and it could barely walk. Logan scooped up the dog without hesitation, while Harper carefully untied the blanket strapped to her body and cradled it in her arms. Once they were in the truck, Harper unwrapped the blanket. Logan glanced over and saw 4 tiny newborn puppies nestled inside. Harper's eyes were filled with tears. Without wasting a second, Logan slammed on the gas, speeding away from the fire. Through her sobs, Harper began to speak. "I heard their cries at the last moment," she said. "When I got to the barn, the dog was giving birth. I couldn't leave them. I had to save them. But then the beam fell and the fire spread so fast." Her voice cracked and tears streamed down her face. Logan took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the road. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the weight and meaning of Harper's brave and selfless act. As they sped down the road, the flames behind them seemed to chase after them, relentless and consuming. Logan and Harper, their eyes filled with tears, raced against time. Suddenly, they noticed a vehicle speeding past them. Logan honked his horn loudly. The vehicle screeched to a stop and began reversing toward them. The driver was Harper's father. When he saw his daughter, his eyes lit up with relief, but there was no time to waste. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Logan, to the school. Now!" Without hesitation, Logan floored the gas pedal and drove toward the school. Behind them, they left not only the raging fire but also a devastated town and a landscape of memories reduced to rubble. When they arrived at the school, Mary ran to Logan and hugged him tightly. The exhaustion and worry on Logan's face seemed to ease slightly in her embrace. Then Michael, his eyes brimming with tears, pulled Logan into a hug and said in a trembling voice, "I'm proud of you, son." Logan took a deep breath, feeling some of the tension inside him finally begin to lift. Meanwhile, Harper took the puppies and their mother to the animal care area set up by the town's veterinarian. The vet immediately placed them in secure kennels and began tending to their needs. Harper and her father embraced, finding quiet comfort in each other after the harrowing ordeal. In the crowded gym, the townspeople sat in near silence. Despite the chaos and packed space, there was a heavy stillness in the air. Everyone shared the weight of the lives saved and the losses endured. That silence, thick with unspoken emotion, felt like a collective lament for a town scarred by fire and uncertainty. In the quiet of the night, Harper approached Logan. Without saying a word, she hugged him tightly. Then, in a soft whisper, she said, "Everything will be okay. Thank you for saving me." Logan couldn't find the words to respond. He just held her close. As the darkness of the night slowly gave way to the rising sun, a voice came over the gym speakers. "The east and north sides are secure. The fire is under control. As soon as Michael heard the announcement, he quickly gathered his family. "We need to check on the herd," he said, and they immediately set out. Driving through scorched fields and charred land, they all silently prayed. When they arrived at the farm, they found part of their house had burned, but most of the damage was confined to the open fields. The house, though scarred, was still standing. Michael took a deep breath and said with determination, "We'll fix it. It'll take time, but we'll have it ready by winter." "Thank God." Logan rushed to the barns. He felt a wave of relief when he saw the herd still there, but his heart sank when he realized a few cows hadn't made it, or had succumbed to the stress and the smoke. It was a harsh reality given the cramped barn and the heavy smoke, but having the rest of the herd alive felt like a miracle. They had suffered a significant loss, yet it could have been far worse. That day, Michael, Logan, and Mary got to work immediately, doing everything they could to start rebuilding. Meanwhile, Harper and her father arrived at the farm. Michael explained the situation to them. Harper's father mentioned that before the fire, he had managed to move his own herd to safety. "If we'd had more time, we would have moved yours too," he said. Michael nodded calmly. "There wasn't time," he replied. Harper's father, genuinely wanting to help, offered his support. With a large workforce at his disposal, he sent over more than a dozen workers to help repair the farm. The crew quickly got to work, doing everything they could to restore the damage. This show of solidarity reminded everyone of the strength of human connection, especially in the hardest of times. Harper's father turned to Logan and Michael with deep gratitude. "I can never thank you enough for saving my daughter. Whatever you need, please don't hesitate to call me," he said, his voice filled with sincerity, a mix of lingering fear and profound relief. Harper, standing nearby, looked at Logan with eyes full of warmth and gratitude. The bond between them was silent yet undeniable. For a moment, Michael and Logan's eyes drifted toward the scorched, blackened fields of their farm. Despite the devastation, both were resolute. They would do whatever it took to preserve their family legacy. Michael placed a hand on Logan's shoulder and said, "I'm proud of you, son. If our story touched your heart and you'd like to see more, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We'd love to hear your stories and thoughts in the comments. Let's continue to connect through more emotional and inspiring stories together."